Thank you so much for joining us today for our Female Voices series. My name is Sim. I'm a content manager at Unlimit. Could you please start us off by introducing yourself and telling us a bit about your career pathway so far?
So my name is Selina Rawal. I currently work as a biochemist, a scientist at GlaxoSmithKline, GSK, but I suppose to give you an idea of the career journey, how I really got where I was. So in science as a whole, I've got about 13 years of experience now. So I've been working in the biopharmaceutical industry for that period of time. How that journey began, so I was quite clueless actually as to what I wanted to get into. I don't want to blow my own trumpet, but when you are pretty good at most of the subjects at school, which I'm sure a lot of people might be having an issue with, you don't really know where your calling is. I still don't know. And my manager still asks me in my one-to-ones, what do I want to be when I grow up? So I think there's still a lot of development. It never really stops. I fell into science because I suppose it started off with my amazing chemistry teacher at school. He was brilliant. I just loved chemistry and loved physics. So I took those at A level, then decided, okay, well, let's just fall into science. So I just fell into chemistry, biochemistry. So that's pretty much, I suppose, it was what I did good at. It's what I also enjoyed. And I just followed my heart almost, I suppose, and did a degree in biochemistry at King's College London, went on to do a master's after that, and then for a 2-year gap in between that, after graduating, there was a recession going on, so there was no real, there weren't any jobs. So applying left, right, and centre, I ended up taking another career path and started studying accountancy. Did that for 2 years. Decided to not really give it one more shot. I've studied for 5-6 years of my life. Even did an industrial placement during my bachelor's at GSK, which I highly recommend. It really gives you an idea of whether you really want to stick out a career and make a job out of it. So I highly recommend if you're looking to do a placement, highly recommend it. But yeah, after that recession, I gave it one last stab. I said, okay, look, if I get a job in this window, I will pursue a career in science. Otherwise, I have to draw the line under it and become an accountant. Thankfully, I got employed, so I then ended up getting a job at Monza Biologics for 8 years, which is a wonderful place to work. Got a lot of my grounding, got a lot of grounding in a lot of different scientific areas, a lot of analytical discipline. The analytical discipline is the main area. And so I suppose after 8 years at Lonza, I've been with GSK. My main focus area is I'm an analytical biochemist, and that's really where my area of expertise lies, but it's in the biopharmaceutical sector. That's how I got where I am. And I really enjoy it.
Thank you. That's amazing. I think the one thing I absolutely love about that, aside from the fact that you have a phenomenal job, which is so fundamental to society, is where you speak really openly about the fact that you had to take that break and you explored other options, because I think a lot of times people are quite ashamed to have that conversation or feel as though maybe they shouldn't be exploring other options, or that it will set them back if they do. And, a lot of people feel like they have that pressure to reach a certain position or career status by a certain age and certain height.
Completely agree with you. I was really, really sad, quite upset during that period. I felt as though, it was 6 years of my year, because I did a year of chemistry actually. Then I changed to biochemistry. And so that was a 4-year course, plus because of the placement, and then this year, which was my chemistry year, then another year for my master's. So 6 years spent in education. And you kind of think at that point that, I did all of the studying, and now I'm not even getting a job in that area. It's what I really want to do. And exploring other options is almost like admitting defeat. So I couldn't really sympathize with that, and it's a very hard thing. Thankfully, it's that I persevered. I think that's one thing. I've got a lot of resilience. I really didn't want to give up. I think accountancy is a great backup. It's very practical. It's good to have that to fall back on. But I think that my heart was it was pining. I had to give it one last chance before drawing a line under it. So I suppose that's what determination paid off in the end. It's important, I suppose, to be honest with yourself, but without sounding a bit cliche about following your dreams or following your heart. I think it means that much to you. Really, really give it a shot, and it's usually things will work out. Or where a door is closed, another one will open, and you may not see it at that time, but the opportunities are endless. And I think you've got to be open-minded, you've got to be open to receiving those. I think I was quite lucky as well. It worked out.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't really think luck has a big part to do with it. I mean, a lot of the time it's, like you said, that dedication, that hard work, and you made that commitment. There were other alternatives, but one of the things that I would really like to touch upon and ask you about is, so you mentioned obviously there was the economic and political factors of the recession happening at the time, but where we in particular are doing this series to voice and support women who are in STEM, because there isn't a very large prevalence of women at the moment, and it's something that we're trying to combat. And particularly even adding on the additional factor of the fact that you are also a fellow Asian woman, where we are encouraged or discouraged from certain careers, as I'm sure it is in other cultures and backgrounds as well. When was it that you first pursued that interest, and what encouraged you to carry on despite the adversity that other people could perhaps take a leaf from your work?
Yeah, would have to say that I don't think I was actually actively encouraged to do a career in science. I think it would definitely, there wasn't any encouragement in that space. I think I was told to possibly even, pursue a career in something that's practical, that that would allow me to get married and have children, and be able to fit around that. And it's for those of your formative years, that's where you are making this transition from being a child to sort of owning your decisions and being part of this journey and taking these decisions that are going to effectively impact the rest of your life. And I think at that age, you don't realize the impact that those decisions have. I think possibly, I can speak for myself, I didn't. You're always told, what do you believe when you grow up and what do you want to do? And you have to make those decisions. I thought, what made me make that decision, I think, was that indecisiveness. I wasn't sure where I wanted to go. And as I said, I just went with what I enjoyed. And I think I may have just thrown caution to the wind. I think I've always been a bit of a rebel in that sense. When I'm told to do something, I automatically want to do the exact opposite, or I feel there's this sort of resistance. And maybe that rebellious side of me played out and decided, no, you know what? This is actually what I'm going to do. And I just threw caution to the wind. And I think it comes into that very determined, that determination, that drive, that passion. Because for me, I'm the sort of person, and I think everyone is like this, that you perform your best when you're doing something that you enjoy, that you're vested in, and it comes down to that job satisfaction, which I don't think many of us are very lucky to have. You will excel if you pursue that, and I think those two things go hand in hand. Because I could work a 12-hour day and not feel it, because I've been doing things that I enjoy. So I think, as you said, where that turning point in that decision was, I think it was sort of around, I think it was when I was doing my final year of A-levels, thinking what I wanted to do, and you have to get your applications in. I think it was at that point that I thought, well, and this is it. And I think, although I was told certain avenues that I could pursue, I definitely knew they weren't for me. So it's just as useful knowing what you don't like, even if you don't know what you like. I think that's another secret message that I think is important, that you know that you don't want to pursue, and it at least cuts through more options that way. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, thank you for sharing, because I know personal experience can always be something that people may not choose to share, but I'm really grateful that you did, because hopefully it will help somebody out there. Because I mean, even I personally faced a very similar pathway. Yeah. So I think when it comes to personal experience, whether it is culture, whether it's faith, whether it's just personal background and family, it can be very difficult to sometimes pursue the career or explore what it is that you enjoy. And one of the things that we've seen throughout this series in particular is that women who are exploring STEM careers particularly face adversity, not only along their pathway, but once they're actually in the field, there is still a lot of stigma, there's a lot of bias, and understandably that would potentially deter women as well. But it is improving over time, because we have voices, we have people that are going to put their foot down like you did, and you were like, nope, this is the career I want. And it is driving change, which is phenomenal. So from a scientific perspective, do you feel that over time you've noticed that there is a change in the environment to encourage more diversity? And if it's maybe lacking, how do you think it could improve?
So to answer that question, what I would say is, for sure, in when I was studying chemistry and all the chemistry focused modules, I did see that actually there were a lot fewer women, stopped fewer girls in those classes versus males. So it's very male dominated. Even the lecturers, I would say, were all males. And I'm looking at things across all levels. And the same thing at work. I would say that in recent years, more and more women have been coming into the workplace. And a lot of women now in working in science. I also in this my industry that's increased. And the positive thing that I've seen in recent years that's increased is within holding managerial positions, women holding more senior posts. So even if women are there, it's also for them to be fighting that uphill battle in promotions and excelling and doing better. And that in itself is a bit of a challenge. We're very fortunate, I think, that in GSK, I think they've got a lot of great things they do for inclusion and diversity, for women as well. And I think that they are actively trying to make differences in, equality, gender, and promoting the an entire symposium actually for women in science. It's empowerment of women. And that's something they do have annually. So not a lot of things that other companies might be doing, but I think that how could we, I suppose those are my observations, but to answer the question then as to what could be done to really improve that, I think it's going to be done at school level when in the educational institutes. There are so many women, so many girls who are so talented, they're gifted, they've got so much to give, so much to offer, and I think that needs to be encouraged. I think that they need to, a bit like our apprentice programs and other programs have now since been developed and are available. I think that needs to be widely marketed. I think there needs to be more of an awareness piece for them to also realize that the diversity of career opportunities, career paths that they can undertake as a result of taking on a STEM subject at university. I think that it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to become a doctor or a nurse or working long hours and unsociable hours and working shifts and whatnot. And if that's what you want to do, obviously, people should be encouraged. But I think it's an education piece. I think everybody needs to be made aware of the opportunities, be told a lot of the success stories. So I suppose the series that you're doing right now is a really great example of what I'm really saying could be done, and making them realize across the board. So in all those areas of disciplines, keep showing them that there are women who, can have their cake and they can eat it too.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, thank you for your kind words as well. It's really sweet of you. And it's really nice to hear about GSK having their own symposium. I think that's so incredible. Like to give people that space, that open space to have a discussion, to voice their opinions, be it concerns, ideas. I think that's phenomenal. I love that idea. So yeah, so thank you. A lot of people actually, and there's actually a lot of studies as well that talk about what you had touched on, where there needs to be a drive for change at a much younger age to encourage girls, women to explore that sort of area, those interests, and essentially not shut down the idea before it's too late. So I think that is definitely a very valid element that people need to start considering, whether it's at a systemic level or even just parents and siblings encouraging each other to pursue those ideas. But if we could also look at your personal experience as a professional, and where you've had such a long and prevalent and successful career, you have seen a lot of change and a lot of development. It'd be really interesting to know, as a senior team member, what steps do you yourself take in the workplace to create an equal playing field for yourself, for your colleagues, for newcomers, that would be helpful as well for other people who are looking to improve their own workplaces?
So two things, just to go back to your earlier question, something else which came to mind. So a bit like how the series that you're holding, so in my previous workplace, I was a STEM ambassador, and what that enabled us to do was to actually go out to schools and actually make presentations, explain to people a day in the life of the scientist what it is that we do, playing around with a lot of cool toys and, breaking things, and, things don't always have what scientists do, don't always create eureka moments. So we do go in and educate them, show them what we do, talk about it. And, doing that at university as well, we've made presentations to students. So that is just something else that I wanted to add to that piece. But then to come back to your question, in terms of workplace, supposed to try and, welcome newcomers, junior members of staff, there's a few things that we actually have in place. So, for example, for a student that's joined the workplace, we have a buddy system. So the student or newcomer even is given a go-to person they can lean on. They have any immediate questions about their onboarding or where to find certain resources or for their orientation. If there's things that may have been left out, or things that may not be included in that orientation, because those are very general, and then department-specific ones are quite unique to each group. So we have that sort of a system. So the person has a go-to person they could go and ask questions of. They also have their supervisor. And then they're also encouraged to, I suppose, have mini meetings with different people within the different groups within the bigger department, and invite them to their team meetings or their daily huddles so that they can see what's going on, work out, I suppose, where each of these groups fit within the bigger cog, within the bigger machine, where all these cogs fit and how they interact. And it gives them a holistic idea, I suppose, the process. From a professional perspective, that's, I suppose, a support system that they have. But it's not just always about work. I think the interpersonal aspects are trying to get them to be comfortable and communicate, and I suppose exhibit their own personality. There are a lot of, again, informal meetings. We invite each other out for coffee breaks, for lunches. We tend to go together. And, it's a very inclusive group, but I think it's getting that person have maximum engagement with different people, and getting them away from their desk and, even getting them to observe lab work. It's maximizing their engagement with other people so they get to know people, build those connections early on, and understand what the ways of working are in the department and in the group. And I think it's also to recognize them as a person. So it's not just science, but it's them to try and engage them on a social level so that they can start building connections on a personal level. And it then leads to, socializing. So socializing outside work, it makes them feel a little bit more confident. They becomes a bit more like home. I think that's really the types of mechanisms that we use.
I love that, especially the part of nurturing somebody for their personality. I think that's really lovely because we are all colleagues, we all have a job role, but we are also individual. So I really appreciate you saying that. That's a lovely thing to add in. I wanted to it sort of ties into what we've also spoken about before as a woman, an Asian woman in particular. But could I ask, though, as a woman of colour that is working in STEM and pursuing her own passions and career, you would have overcome numerous challenges, opinions, obstacles, both for just being who you are, being a woman of colour as well. There are what people would describe as like marks against our name, just for who we are as individuals, which we cannot change. But that aside, where you have managed to persevere, how you've managed to grow is absolutely phenomenal. And it's so inspiring. But I think one thing that I really wanted to ask is how you remotivate yourself to get back up on those days where you find yourself particularly challenged by others' opinions or a tough day overall. How do you relight that fire?
to address maybe a particular challenge, which I think might be, and it's sharing something quite personal, but it's something that I think that's quite a generic thing. Women as a whole, we're very strong people. We're very, very strong. And so as we don't realize how strong we really are until we really we're literally bringing our feet to the fire, literally. We're at the same time, we're very, very fiercely protective, we're very strong. At the same time, we're very, very submissive. And I think when I first joined the industry, I think one of the things I found was I was very eager to learn. I was very enthusiastic. I still am very eager to learn every day school day. But I'm always learning something. But at the same time, there was this very submissive side of me that would be very willing to, try and do things for people and trying to be as accommodating as possible and not finding that voice. It was only until I was really, really, really up against it and, had a lot of things going on at that point that I really then had to realize that, it's not all about doing things for people and, doing things for people and helping them get their own stuff done. But my work also needs to be prioritized. So that was a lesson that I had to learn. And that lioness, that voice came out in the end and realized actually that, there's my stuff that's important too. There's things I've got to get done. And I've got to, prioritize. And I found that voice, so that lioness came out. And I think now I've got that right balance. I think with it going to, I think there are challenges there that, we have that can be either ethnicity based or it can be just that you're a woman. It's not specific to that. I think it's just a personal experience with those situations I described. There were times where I was feeling like a doormat, or, a bit like a rug, and I just suddenly thought, getting moved over, taking the last job, or everyone's basically taking from my energy pod, and I'm literally left with nothing at the end. That's literally how I used to get. How do I motivate myself? I think it's down to a few things. I think the first thing is that if you love your job, that's quite an easy way to pull yourself back in and get yourself back on track. Because you realize that, something like you make medicines for a living, you help develop those, you're helping, these are vital steps in getting drugs out to the market that really help people. And it's a really, really rewarding job when you see the impact that you literally make on patients' lives. That's a huge, huge, huge motivating factor. Also, in a lot of people's workplaces, another motivation factor is the people that you work with. For a lot of people stay in the place that they do. They don't look at other opportunities often because of the people they work with. And the people I work with are an amazing bunch. If you've got a great manager, that obviously is the cherry on top, which I'm very fortunate to have. I think if it's not the people and if it's not the job and you're really still trying to get yourself out of bed in the mornings, you're still trying to work out how I'm going to get dressed and get myself to work and find the will to do what I need to do. I think that this is where you may find a strength that you never had because you have to get the job done. But I think that this is where I think people, and it's very hard to do. It's looking inwardly reflecting and thinking, well, what's making me so demoralized? And more often than not, even if that it's people around us that have either said something or done something. The outcome has not been as you've expected, and some of these things are out of our control. We have no control over those things. What you do have control over, though, is what you have, what you can do, and you can positively influence things. And the way you can, and the only way you can make the situation better with whatever's actually made you demoralized in the first place is to rewrite the story that you're telling yourself and think, well, this is what's happened and this is how I'm feeling. And, the only way I can possibly change it is by changing my actions and rewriting that. And as soon as people realize that actually they have the power to change things, maybe not all the things that have happened that have made them demotivated, but to change the way their day pans out, it's the power is in your hands. If the minute you realize that, you think, well, actually, I was getting worked over nothing, and I can actually positively influence how my day and how everything progresses. And that's, I think, what sets you apart from maybe the rest who may choose to continue to do the same thing again and expect a different result. But the change has to come from within, and you have a lot more power than you think you do.
Amazing. Thank you. I completely agree. And I think the part where you spoke about being surrounded by the right people is so fundamental. Like, even myself, I'm so grateful for the manager I have. I'm so grateful for the team I have because, like you said, even on the really tough days, there is someone there to support you, someone who remotivates you, or even just gets you to say, hold on, just take a breath, take a second, let's work through it, and exactly find that zen and bring you back to center. And that's really important. And I think that ties in really heavily with what we were talking about how workplaces can create that right environment to encourage people, not even just women, but people of all creeds, all races, all diversities that exist out there. So that is lovely. So thank you for sharing that. So moving forward slightly, so for future generations, people, young girls, young women, older women who would like to maybe reevaluate their career, people who are looking into STEM and science, how would you give them advice on how could they pursue that interest? How can they explore their interest in science, improve their learnings to find out if it's the right path that they would like to take?
So aside from obviously watching the series that you're producing, I think that they could reach out to people and so go onto LinkedIn, speak to people who have got the ideal career or have had experience in the area that they want to learn more about. There's a wealth of people out there who are really willing to talk and share their experiences. I've had a lot of friends, children, a lot of friends who've come to me and said, Selina, can you tell me about your career journey? I've had students come and say to me, Selina, how to prepare for interviews. So I've just given them prep advice on how I prepare myself for an interview and, they're looking to go for it. So I think there's a lot of online resources as well. Company websites have a lot of information there on the profiles of, the really high-flying execs, but then following their journey might give you an idea of how to get there. And you'll find also that no one has a traditional career path. We have a thing in our town, in our quarterly meetings that we have. We actually do put the spotlight on various people throughout the department. It's a pretty large department, and people share their career journey, how they got to how they began their journey, to how they got to where they are. And what's amazing about that is no one person's had the same journey. One thing I would also say is if someone's looking for a job in this, you do not need a PhD. That's something else that's a very common misconception. I didn't have a PhD. I really wanted to do one. And I think maybe now it's not the best time for me to think about the third one now. But it's definitely something that I could pick up in the future. It's, the sky's the limit in that sense. And that's an example. I haven't ruled that out. Even after the experience, it wouldn't necessarily help me career-wise, but for me, it'd be quite a selfish reason just to get the doctor in front of my name. I think that would be the reason for me to do it. But you don't need a PhD. That's a common misconception. You need drive, you need passion, you need to, be willing to put in the extra work. You need to, action speaks louder than words do. And I think that can really go a long way. And that gives you a variety of, I suppose, where you can get the information from. And for the people who are, regardless of their age, looking to pursue a career, it's never too late. I think it's, there's obviously a lot of courses as well that are available for people who are at different stages in their educational journey too, which is an amazing thing, which wasn't always there. So there's a lot of options, but I can't encourage that enough.
Thank you. That's lovely. I'm sure you'd be phenomenal if you had a PhD. I would be the same as you. I would want it so I have the doctor before my name.
Exactly. Being honest, but not necessarily because people. I think that's a misconception I have heard. I mean, experience speaks volumes. So that's the main thing. And remember, someone who may go down that PhD path may also want to be an academic-focused person. So academia in science, academia is very different to industry. So I work in industry, you do your qualifications and you get your degree, and you're working very much in an academic area. That in industry, it's focus is obviously very different. But in that case, she said PhD is mandatory.
Yeah, no, thank you for like sort of reinstating that, because oddly, one of the things that we've heard a lot throughout this series, we've had many wonderful women who come on an incredible path, much like yourself, and they always reinstate the fact and they repeat it that the educational process, it's amazing. If somebody wants to pursue it, absolutely, go ahead, it's phenomenal. But it is not the only option anymore. So for those who may not be academically inclined, where they can sit in a lecture and be spoken to for an hour and then write an essay or sit an exam, there are other options and there are other routes. So I think it's lovely that you sort of repeated that and emphasized that, because that will be a huge factor for so many people.
Absolutely. Apprenticeships, they did not exist. If I was a student now, I would grab that apprenticeship, and that is what it would take, because you would end up with the degree at the end of it, 3 years experience, 2 to 3 years experience in industry, and no student debt. The last one probably being the most important, even though the first two were actually the most important. But yeah, no, for quality of life aspect, right, you work at the same time, you get a salary, you study at the same time. They're so supportive of that, and you also then quite likely get a job at the end of it, because they've spent all these years nurturing you and getting you involved in so many different activities, and you then have a job waiting for you at the end of it. More than likely is a wonderful position to be in.
Absolutely, absolutely. So one of my favorite questions that I have not asked anybody yet, but I'm so excited to ask you. It's a lovely question to round us off, really, is when you think of an inspiring woman, who comes to mind and why?
You sent me so when you mentioned you'd sent me the questions, I'll be honest with you, initially when I thought about this, I came up with a variety of answers, and I was struggling a lot to just think of just one woman. So I'm going to cheat a little bit and maybe mention it, because the first woman that I think that's most inspiring, and it's so cliche, but it's so true. The two women in my life that are the most inspirational for me are my mother and my sister. Because my mother is a superwoman. She had to raise me for starters. She had 2 others that she put in, the 3 children she brought up and worked and looked after the house. She's the epitome of a superwoman, as most of our mothers are, from that generation. They literally did it all. They had it all, and yet they didn't, because my mum sacrificed quite a lot and did what she had to support everyone in the family except her own. She would probably say her own selfish dreams or desires that she wanted, and that took a hit. And for someone to be able to do that, it brings tears to my eyes. It makes me feel so privileged and so honoured to have someone like that in my life, who is a great role model in the sense that, putting others first, and, making sure that the basic things are met and that people can grow up. I still push her to pursue things if she wishes to, and she's thinking about it. Slow process, but I'm working on it. It's not over. It's not over. She can still do anything she wants to. And the second one is my sister, who is no longer with us, but she was the greatest advocate of my career in science. She is actually the one who I didn't mention before, pushed me to go for chemistry, for biochemistry. She's the one who said, "Selina, you've got the brains." It's what she'd always says. "Selina, you're much brainier than I am. Go for it. You can do it. I'm so proud of you." And she'd go around telling all her friends, "Oh, my sister's at King's College. She's studying chemistry. She's doing this. She's doing that." And I'd be left so embarrassed at the end of it. But she was my greatest. Apart from my mum, she's my greatest advocate and believer. And she's the one who, there's always someone else who believes in you more than you do yourself. And we all have those people that are always constantly told. And she's got to be up there with my mother. So because remember, there's the science, Selina the scientist, there's Selina the person, or there's Sim, who, the Sim the career person, Sim the human being behind that career person. So we've always got at least two halves, at least. There's at least two parts to the story, maybe more in some cases. And so I think that personal, the personal backing, I think, was a very important acknowledgement I had to make. But on a professional note, I think that there were so many inspirational women. There's very few, but you could look at the men in science. When you look at the men that are in science, there are the women, they far outnumber the women. And for me, that was always a stark realization. Even fewer in ethnic backgrounds, just sort of carry on the theme that we've been talking about. And I suppose one woman that really stuck out to me because she won 2 Nobel Prizes. She was a lecturer, and she died very young, and she really could have had so much yet to give. Was Marie Curie, and I remember studying about her at school, and countless other, Rosalind Franklin, and so many other ladies. At least in the field of biochemistry, I'm keeping it local biochemistry. Because if I start listing off these other women who are superheroes in my head, I'll be here forever. But I think if I localize it, I think Marie Curie was the first lady that came to my mind. She was absolutely amazing. She was taken away far too young, and she could have been so much more. But to have 2 Nobel Prizes and to achieve everything that she did, she was a great inspiration. Great inspiration. And being a fellow chemist/physicist, I think there was a lot of things that I could learn from her and about her. So I think that's probably the best way for me to, without going off on a real long tangent. There's inspirational women all around us. They can be at home, they can be sitting right next to us on the train or on the bus, and they can be alongside us in the workplace. There are people that walk by us in the street, they're everywhere. And I think it's shout out to all the levels to acknowledge that they're everywhere, and we're all aspiring to become like that.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, you put that together so beautifully. I'm so grateful because that was genuinely, you could see it was a genuine sort of passion that you feel and you truly mean it. And I think it's really lovely that you also touched on the fact that, there's that personal side where you have your supporters of your family, of your mum and your sister, who I'm so sorry is no longer with us. And then you have the professional side, those people that pursue, that encourage you to pursue your dream. Because you're like, wow, look at their pathway, as well as the fact that you have that personal element. And even that comes back into the sort of motivational element. So those motivations that we find to keep us going every day and that have helped you become this inspiring person. Like Selina, you're a senior scientist, a woman who has pursued her dream despite the lacking of women in STEM, where cultural and social factors that would discourage you otherwise. So that's absolutely incredible. And I am so grateful for you making time to speak with me today, because it has been not only educational, but a genuine pleasure.
Pleasure's all mine, honestly. I think what you're doing is a great thing. Hospital is encouraging and inspiring. We're happy you continue to do that.
Oh, bless you. Thank you so much.